Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Narottam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiri Nashtaprahe Shavadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, today we're starting new chapter, chapter 88, text number 1 onwards. 80 chapter entitled Sudama, Brahman Sudama visits Lord Krishna in Dwarka. Shri Raja Vacha Bhagwan Yani Chanyani Mukundasya Mahatmana Viryanyananda Viryasya Shrotum Ichhami He Prabhu. King Parikshit said, My Lord, O Master, I wish to hear about other valorous deeds performed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Mukunda, whose valor is unlimited. Konu Shrutva Sakrit Brahman Uttam Shlok Kasat Katha Virameta Visheshagyo Vishanna Kama Margane. O Brahman, how could anyone who knows the essence of life and is disgusted with endeavoring for sense gratification give up the transcendental topics of Lord Uttam Shlok after hearing them repeatedly? Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments here that we see many persons who, even after hearing the topics of Lord repeatedly, give up their spiritual dedication. Acharya replies that the word Visheshagya is therefore significant here. Those who have actually understood the essence of life do not give up Krishna consciousness. A further qualification is to be Vishanna Kama Margane, disgusted with material sense gratification. These two qualities are complementary. One who has experienced a real taste of Krishna consciousness automatically becomes disgusted with the inferior taste of material pleasure. Such a genuine hearer of the topics of Krishna cannot give up hearing about the Lord's fascinating pastimes. And see, even Parikshit Maharaj sitting there listening day and night, and he is saying, tell me more, tell me more. He never said, oh, I have it. Just let's rest, let's sleep. Nothing. He wants to hear more and more. That kind of eagerness, lolupta, is what we have to develop. Savagyaya tasya gunan grinite karo chatat karma karo manascha smared vasantam sthirajangameshu srinoti tat punya katha sakarna. Actual speech is that which describes the qualities of the Lord. Real hands are those that work for Him. A true mind is that which always remembers Him dwelling within everything, moving and non-moving. And actual ears are those that listen to sanctifying topics about Him. While continuing from the previous verse to glorify the sense of hearing dedicated to the Lord, King Parikshit mentions the other senses also, so that we gain a complete picture of Krishna consciousness. Here he declares that without any connection to Krishna, the Supreme Lord, all the organs of the body become useless. And that is true. What is the real purpose of all these organs? All these organs are given to us, first of all, made up of earth, water, fire, air, ether, only, nothing else. And they're given to be used in the service of the owner of these organs, Rishikesha, and which is Krishna. Otherwise we're just ruining our life and we are called thieves, and that's why we get punished. And rest, everything else is just superfluous, and it is binding. We want to earn more and more and more and more money, and this property, that property, and it ends up giving us false hopes and gives us pain only. There will be too many people after that property or money, whatever we have. But if we get this money of Krishna consciousness, Harinam, Krishna Katha, nobody can take it away. Nobody. And at the same time, we get eligible to go back to the spiritual world, from where we don't have to come back to here, come back to the material world. And it itself is so blissful, so sweet, chanting and hearing and serving. There's nothing else anybody wants. There's nothing else. And this is what we'll see from Sudama's story. Shirastu tasyobhya linga maname tadev pashyati tadhi chakshu angani vishnorat tajjananam padodakam yani bhajanti nityam. An actual head is one that bows down to the Lord in his manifestations among the moving and non-moving creatures. Real eyes are those that see only the Lord, and actual limbs are those which regularly honor the water that has bathed the Lord's feet or those of his devotees. So this is a real use of the body. Sutavacha. So Suta Goswami, sitting in Naimisharanya among 88,000 sages, he's saying, Vishnu Raten Samprishto Bhagavan Badarayani Vasudeve Bhagavati Nimagna Hridayo Abravit. Suta Goswami thus said, thus questioned by King Vishnu Rath. So Vishnu Rath, actually, it means who was protected by Vishnu or Krishna. The powerful sage Badrayani replied, his heart fully absorbed in meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. Shri Shukavacha, Krishna Syatsit Sakha Kashit, Brahmano Brahma Vittama, Virakta Indriyartheshu, Prashantatma Jitendriya. Shukdev Goswami said, Lord Krishna had a certain Brahman friend named Sudama, who was most learned in Vedic knowledge and detached from all sense enjoyment. Furthermore, his mind was peaceful and his senses were subdued. And this can only happen when one is completely absorbed in bhakti. Yadrichyopapanena vartamanu grihashrami tasya bharya kuchainasya kshut kshama cha tatha vidha. Living as a householder, he maintained himself with whatever came of its own accord. The wife of that poorly dressed Brahman suffered along with him and was emaciated from hunger. Sudama's chaste wife was also poorly dressed, and whatever food she obtained, she gave to her husband. And thus she remained fatigued from hunger. And Krishna's mercy, when we went to Dwarka Yatra, we went to Porbandar. Porbandar is where Sudama lived, and we went to that temple also. So from Porbandar, it's Dwarka. Well, by bus it's not far, but somebody goes walking, it is little far. Pativrata patimpraha malayata vadanena saha daridram sida manave vepa mana vigamya cha. The chaste wife of the poverty-stricken Brahman once approached him. Her face dried up because of her distress. Trembling with fear, she spoke as follows. According to Sri Goswami, the chaste lady was especially unhappy because she could not obtain food to feed her husband. So even though she was hungry, she was fatigued, but she wanted to serve her husband. That is chaste lady. Further, she was fearful to approach her husband because she knew that he did not want to beg for anything other than devotion to the Supreme Lord. So sometimes people say, why? I mean, why he was suffering so much? He had nothing to eat. We think he was suffering. He himself, as it is said, he was completely satisfied. Whatever he had. Nanu Brahmana Bhagavata Sakha Sakshat Shriyapati Brahmanayascha Sharanyascha Bhagavana Satvata Rishabha. And for all these years, it's not like they just moved there. They've been living there for many, many years. They never went to Krishna, even though there was nothing in the house. But now Sudama's wife said, "Oh Brahman, isn't it true that the husband of the goddess of fortune is a personal friend of your exalted self? That greatest of Yadavas, the Supreme Lord Krishna, is compassionate to Brahmins and very willing to grant them his shelter. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains how the Brahman's wife anticipated every possible objection her husband might make to her request that he go to Lord Krishna to beg charity. So she, in one sentence, she just covered everything. If the Brahman might say, how could the husband of fortune befriend a fallen soul like myself? She replies by saying that Lord Krishna is Brahmanya, very favorably disposed towards the Brahmins. Sudama might claim to have no real devotion for the Lord. She replies by saying that he is a great and wise personality who would surely obtain the shelter and mercy of the Lord. If the Brahman might object that Lord Krishna is equally disposed to all the countless unhappy conditioned souls suffering the fruits of their own karma, she replied that Lord Krishna is especially the Lord of the devotees, and thus even if he himself did not grant Sudama his mercy, certainly the devotees engaged in serving the Lord would mercifully give him some charity. So very willing, he is compassionate to the Brahmins and he's your friend, so you should go there. Since the Lord protects the Satvatas, means the devotee, the members of the Yadu dynasty, what difficulty would be there for him to protect a humble Brahman like Sudama? And what fault would be there in his doing so? So basically, and she wasn't unhappy that she didn't have anything to eat. Many times in movies or TV serials, it is shown like that. But no, she was unhappy because she could not see her husband suffering. Tamobaihi mahabhaga sadhunam cha parayanam dasyati dravinam bhuri sidate te kutumbine. O fortunate one, please approach him, the real shelter of all saints. He will certainly give abundant wealth to such a suffering householder as you. Aste adhuna dvaravattyam bhoja vrishni andakeshvara smarata padakamalam atmanam api yachati kim no artha kamana bhajato natya bhishta na jagat guru. Lord Krishna is now the ruler of the Bhojas, Vrishnis and Andhaks and is staying at Dwarka, since he gives even his own self to anyone who simply remembers his lotus feet. What doubt is there that he, the spiritual master of the universe, will bestow upon his sincere worshipper prosperity and material enjoyment, which are not even very desirable. So, it's not even desirable, but he gives. The Brahman's wife here implies that since Lord Krishna is the ruler of the Bhojas, Vrishnis, and Andhaks, if these opulent rulers merely acknowledge Sudama as a personal friend of Krishna's, they could give him everything he required. In this connection, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that since Lord Krishna had at this point put aside his weapons, he no longer traveled outside his own capital of Dwarka. Thus, Srila Prabhupada writes in Krishna book, the Brahman's wife said, I have heard that he never leaves his capital city, Dwarka. He's living there without outside engagements. So you can go and approach him now. So Sudama's wife thought, even if Sudama went to Dwarka and simply remained silent before the Lord, he will certainly give him abundant wealth as well as shelter at his lotus feet, which was Sudama's real objective. So there cannot be any loss in going to Krishna. So evam bharyaya vipro bahusha prarthito muhu ayami paramo labha uttam shloka darshanam iti sanchitya manasa gamnaya matim dadhe api asti upayanam kinchit grihe kalyani diyata. Shukdev Goswami continued. When his wife thus repeatedly implored him in various ways, the Brahman thought to himself, to see Lord Krishna is indeed the greatest achievement in life. Thus he decided to go, but first he told her, my dear good wife, if there is anything in the house I can bring as a gift, please give it to me. Sudama was naturally humble, and thus, although at first he was dissatisfied with his wife's proposal, finally he settled his mind and decided to go. Now the last detail was that he had to take a gift for his friend. This, see how much they are thinking. He's not thinking, I'm just going to go and beg. He's thinking, he is my friend. I have to take him something, take some gift for him. Sometimes we know the story of Sudama and Krishna. So sometimes people ask, why Krishna's friend, or Krishna being Dwarkadhish, is the supreme personality of Godhead, why he had to let Sudama suffer like this? Some say, oh, it was his karma. Okay, karma, fine, but Krishna is his friend. He can remove all his karmas. What's so difficult for him? It was that Sudama never asked Krishna. Sudama, he was always satisfied. Krishna could not do anything. Krishna didn't want to hurt his friend's feelings. And he was, and also we'll see when Sudama comes back and he did not ask Krishna, Sudama was saying, oh, it's very good Krishna didn't give me anything because otherwise my bhakti would have suffered. So Krishna gets bound by the devotee's desires. He cannot go beyond that. That's the thing. So let's see. It's a beautiful, beautiful story. Yachitva chaturo mushtim Vipran prithu katandulam Chal khandena tanabatva Bhartre pradadupayanam. Sudama's wife begged 4 handfuls of flat rice from neighboring Brahmins, tied up the rice in a torn piece of cloth, and gave it to her husband as a present for Lord Krishna. So they didn't have anything in the house. 4 handfuls of flat rice. That's all she got when she went for begging. And naturally, when we go for, if somebody goes for begging, of course, we don't go for begging. If somebody goes for begging, some beggar comes to our house, we are not going to give him or her the best quality of flat rice in our house. We're going to give the worst quality. And this is all she got. And she tied up in a torn piece of cloth. Even the cloth wasn't proper. And this was the gift for Krishna. Krishna, he's not greedy for our gifts, for our money, for our opulence, for our gyan, for anything. He's full of everything. What does he need? 6 opulences we always read, right? Beauty, fame, knowledge, strength, renunciation, and opulence. He's full. There's nobody even close to him. He's full of all this. He doesn't need any of this. He doesn't need any show off. Only one thing he needs. It's our love, our devotion, our service. And that too, he doesn't need for himself. It's for our benefit. He reciprocates as we love him. He reciprocates accordingly. And not just accordingly, he gives more. But he's waiting for us to turn towards him and give him our love, our service, our devotion, our time, our efforts for him. So when she begged this 4 handfuls of flat rice, Krishna knows everything, what is going on. He is Paramatma also, and he's Supreme Lord. He knows everything. So her only feeling of service in this case was she went to beg, and so that Krishna can be given some gift. That's all. Satanadaya vipragriya prayayo dwarakam kila Krishna sandarshanam mayam katham syaditi chintayan. Taking the flat rice, a saintly Brahman set off for Dwarka, all the while wondering, how will I be able to have Krishna's audience? Among other things, Sudama assumed that the gatekeepers would stop him. And Trini Gul मान्यतियाय तिस्रा कक्षाश्च द्विज विप्र अगम्यांधक वृष्णीना गृहेषु अच्युत धर्मिणा गृहं द्वयश्च सहस्राणां महिषिणा हरेर्द्विज विवैश्य कथं श्रीमद् ब्रह्मानंदम गतो यथा. The learned Brahman, joined by some local Brahmins, passed 3 guard stations and when they went into Dwarka and went through 3 gateways. And then he walked by the homes of Lord Krishna's faithful devotees, the Andhaks and Vrishnis, which ordinarily no one could do. He then entered one of the opulent palaces belonging to Lord Hari's 16,000 queens. And when he did so, he felt as if he were attaining the bliss of liberation. When the saintly Brahman entered the precincts of Lord Krishna's palaces and then actually entered one of the palaces, he completely forgot everything else. And thus his state of mind is compared to that of one who has just achieved the bliss of spiritual liberation. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur quotes, wherein we learn that the Brahman actually entered the palace of Rukmini. He stood for a moment in silence at the doorway of Queen Rukmini's palace. So yes, in the TV serials, it shows that he was stopped by the by the gatekeepers, and the gatekeeper went to inform inside that Krishna, this friend, is come, and then Krishna comes running bare feet. Bhagavatam doesn't say, but maybe other Puran talks like this. I don't know. Maybe it's more detail given in other Puranas. Tam vilokya achuto durat praya paryankam astita sahasutthaya chabhyatya dorbhyam parya grihin muda. At that time, Lord Achyuta was seated on his consort's bed. Spotting the Brahman at some distance, the Lord immediately stood up, went forward to meet him, and with great pleasure embraced him. Sakhyu priyasya viprasya anga sangati nirvrita prito vyamunchad binduna netrabhyam pushkarekshana. The lotus-eyed Supreme Lord felt intense ecstasy upon touching the body of his dear friend, the wise Brahman, and thus he shed tears of love. Athopaveshya paryanke swayam sakhyu samarhanam upahrityava nijyasya pado padava nejani agrihi charasa parajan bhagwan lokana pavana vyalim padde vyagandhena chandan na guru kumkume dhupa surbhi bhirmitram pradipavali bhirmuda architva vedya tambul gamcha swagatam abravit. Lord Krishna seated his friend Sudama upon the bed. See, I mean, who invites us into his bedroom? Normally people make us sit in the living room or in the lobby or wherever. In the bedroom. Only if it is a very dear, very close friend. Then the Lord, who purifies the whole world, personally offered him various tokens of respect and washed his feet. O king, after which he sprinkled the water on his own head. That is Krishna. He anointed him with divinely fragrant sandalwood, aguru, and kumkum paste, and happily worshipped him with aromatic incense and arrays of lamps. After finally offering him betel nut and the gift of a cow, he welcomed him with pleasing words. See how much he loves his devotees, Brahmins. He personally did all this arti and anointed him with sandalwood, agru, kumkum, everything. And Rukmini Devi must be arranging everything for the Lord to do, how to all this paraphernalia. Kuchalam malinam shamam dvijam dham ni santatam devi paricharat sakshat chamar vyajanena vai. By fanning him with her charmer, the divine goddess of fortune personally served that poor Brahman whose clothing was torn and dirty and who was so thin that veins were visible all over his body. So goddess of all, Rukmini Devi herself is fanning him with Jamar fan. And Krishna is serving him. Antapura jano drishtva Krishna namal kirtin vismito abhuti pritya avadhutam savajitam. The people in the royal palace were astonished to see Krishna, the Lord of spotless glories, so lovingly honored this shabbily dressed Brahman. They were thinking, who is this Brahman? Kimanena kritam punyam avadhutena bhikshuna shriyahinena lokesmin garhitena dhamena cha yuvasutrilok guruna Srinivasena samprita paryankastham shriyam hitva parishvakto agrajo yatha. The residents of the palace said, what pious acts has this unkempt, impoverished Brahman performed? People regard him as lowly and contemptible. Yet the spiritual master of the three worlds, the abode of goddess Shri, is serving him reverently. Leaving the goddess of fortune sitting on her bed, the Lord has embraced this Brahman as if he were an older brother. It's a beautiful story. I don't want to stop here, but well, okay, so we'll take up the rest tomorrow. See, anybody has any questions or comments? Okay, so you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.